All right, everyone. This is Tom and Austin. Today we're going to present ChangeTalk. So, what is motivational interviewing, or MI? MI is a counseling technique which aims to help clients resolve their ambivalence. And in MI, clients usually elicit both change talk, which is talk that supports change, and also sustain talk, which is the opposite. And counselors are then evaluated based on how well they elicit change talk from their clients, and also to avoid sustained talk, and at the same time maintaining a good therapeutic alliance. So why a virtual smoker? Training counselors is usually a very costly process, which requires another human to role play with as a client. This process is time consuming, it is inconsistent, and also it's not scalable. So ChangeTalk provides a realistic MI client for a counselor to train with. So what are the inputs and outputs of our system? So per session, the inputs includes a pre-configured character trait, or the persona, that determines how the virtual smoker would behave. And also for each session, also the counselor's utterances as well. As for the outputs, it is the virtual smoker's utterances. And at the end of the session, a feedback document that tells the human clinician how well they did.
So here's an example of what the input looks like. So the first part you can see on the top right is the counselor utterances, which is as it's happening in the conversation. And the second part is the profile of the virtual smoker that consists of these fields that I'll explain shortly. And here is what the output looks like. Basically, it's a generated PDF feedback report, which mentions an overview, some specific feedback with regards to strength, growth areas, and some practice suggestions, as well as session summary metrics and the METI global scores, which is cultivating change talk, softening sustained talk, partnership, and empathy, and finally, the conversation trajectory graph. So the first step in our virtual smoker is the profile generation. So we had human transcripts, which is a human talking with a counselor, and we use these with an LLM to extract the fields for the profile, which consists of persona, behavioral problem, motivation to quit smoking, beliefs, an acceptable plan, if any, that the client has to quit, and a receptivity score of how he interacts with the counselor. In total, we had 173 profiles, and for our experiments right now, we've picked 5 profiles that covered a diverse range of personas and receptivity levels, and then these profiles are used to prompt an LLM in order to simulate a human smoker.
So in order to validate our feedback system, what we did was we extracted 5 high quality and 5 low quality conversations, and then we identify if the conversations contains these characteristics, and that being if they're high or low quality, if the counselor follows the client's lead, which means it's a client-centric conversation, if the counselor uses good reflections, asks permission before giving advice, and also maintains good partnership throughout the conversation. Then we generated the feedback report for all of these 10 conversations, and then we verify if the report itself contains, mention these 5 points. So this is the agentic system architecture for ChangeTalk. It contains 2 main systems. The first one is a virtual smoker, which has 2 agents, one of them being the virtual smoker itself, which takes in the human utterances and the traits. And then the other one is the stopping agents, which determines when a conversation has reached its natural end. Once a conversation is over, the transcript is then fed into AutoMISC, which labels the conversation based on its MISC code, which outputs the annotated transcript and the session summaries. After that, it is fed into the feedback system, which contains 2 agents. The first agent is the overall general feedback, which writes the main structure of the feedback. And the second one is the METI global score, which gives a grade to each of the 4 METI global metric and an explanation of why that score exists as it does. After that, it then feeds the PDF back into the human clinician. As for the metrics of success, there are 2 sets of metrics. First one is the feedback metrics, which measures how well the METI global scores are assigned. And the second one is how accurate does the feedback document capture the characteristics of the conversation.
So for validating the virtual smoker, there's basically 2 things that we're looking at. The first is that the text that it generates, it should be realistic and similar to how human smokers talk. For this, we did a qualitative comparison. And the second part is that because we're using it to train MI clinicians, we want it to cover a diverse range of profiles. So for the first part, we did a qualitative comparison of the corresponding virtual smoker conversations with the real human conversations, and we found that they're quite similar in terms of their style, the length, etc. And here is just one example of two utterances. For the next part, which is the diversity of the profiles, so for this we tested how the receptivity levels change the results. So as you can see here, a low receptivity corresponds to low change talk, and high receptivity corresponds to high change talk. And over here, the graph on the right further illustrates this, where we see that by increasing the receptivity score, we get higher change talk. And on the graph on the left is showing that as we increase the receptivity score, the client goes into change talk quicker in the conversation. So all this is to show that the receptivity and the diversity was properly installed.
All right, so for the feedback validation results, there are two sections. First is the MET global scores. Since there are no ground truth to the actual scores that are assigned to these conversations, what we did was we averaged the MET global scores across both good and bad conversations, and then with the hope that the system should assign to a higher score to good conversations, and that ended up being the case. The second one is the general feedback accuracy. So the system is very good at determining when a conversation is good or when it is bad.